Well, great to have our great friend Tom Gillis here in Michigan. I know it's we see each other down in Florida a lot, but a little cold up here.
Yeah, for me it is. Yeah, I'm not used to this anymore.
Great to see you. Obviously, we've done some stuff before, and more so, especially with our companies here, Make the Turn,
Yeah,
and Metro Detroit Golfers. Obviously, we do a lot with golf, but we do a lot with a lot of other different industries. I mean, anywhere from finance to mortgage to healthcare, you name it, helping them with that golf connotation make the turn and grow their business. So, wanted to kind of just, without some sort of set outline or agenda, just talk to you kind of about that topic of golf and business. There's such a correlation, sponsorships, and just after golf, life after golf, all of it.
yeah,
Would you agree?
yeah. I mean, there's so much business being done on the golf course. I mean, when I would play those pro-ams on tour on Wednesday, I'd always find out who the lead guy was and say, all right, which clients are yours? Like, who do you want us to look after? And
Yeah.
I think that's important because you might be guarding the wrong guy. Now you don't put a full hardcore press on them,
No.
but you might spend a little extra time, give them a read, read a putt, just spend a little bit more time with them because there is a lot of business being done.
Well, even we talk about it a lot where we know some super, super successful people and busy people, and it's like so tough sometimes to even get them for 20, 30 minutes for a meeting. But
Yeah.
you ask them to play golf, and now
Schedule clears
got-
pretty quick.
Yeah.
4 or 5 hours of undivided attention.
Right.
And that's where it can be. Golf is a great business sport from that level too,
Oh, yeah.
just out in the workplace where you can not hard sell on the golf course, but form
Yeah.
relationships, camaraderie, get stuff done.
Well, I remember I had a friend, he used to be the CFO of Tire Kingdom down there in West Palm Beach, and he lived in my neighborhood, and I asked him, I said, hey, let me ask you a hypothetical. If you had a kid that was working upstairs and maybe he's working for you for 2 years out of college, and he was a scratch player, does he have a chance to leapfrog everybody else in front of him? And he's personable, Does he have a chance to leapfrog everybody, or not everybody, but a lot of the people ahead of him to get to where he wants to go in the company faster? He said 100%. 100% because we're taking him to every outing. We're taking him with the clients because he can play.
Well,
And he has understanding of the game.
Right. There's so many examples of that, too. Like, people almost get a late start with it.
Yeah.
They realize when they get into the business world, man, I probably should have picked up a golf club or something.
Totally.
Then it's almost too late. You
Yeah.
got to really rush and spend a few years trying to get, to a certain level. I hear a lot of women even,
Yeah.
working in businesses and companies, whatever, trying to pick up the game because they want to be included in outings, and all of a sudden
Yep.
they can somehow feel like they're a part of all that and get
Yeah.
closer to some of the clients, employees, whatever it may be.
Definitely. My son's 19, and I never pushed him to be a tour player or anything like that, but I always said, hey, you want to have this game in your hat. It's just good. You don't even got to be great, but if you're decent and you understand the rules of the game and the etiquette and you play fast, you're going to be able you're going to have a lot of opportunity. You got these people cornered for 4 hours, if
Right.
you're trying to get the contract or whatever. And you learn a lot about somebody on the golf course for 4 hours or 5 hours. You get to know them pretty good.
And just building relationships too.
Exactly.
Joking, talking. How many times have you played with someone where you can immediately recall, oh, hey, remember when we were playing and this happened or whatever? I think it's great just for networking and even to the point about outings. As monotonous as the Monday charity foursome scramble outings can be for a lot of people, and as
Yeah.
long as they can be, there's a reason why they are what they are. Because if a big corporation or a big charitable organization is doing a scramble outing, they want everyone to participate. So maybe there is a not even just women, but maybe there's someone who doesn't play golf that much.
Yeah.
Because of the scramble, maybe they can hit a putt. Maybe they
Yeah.
can hit a chip or something.
But they always, I've been in groups like that, and they feel bad. They're frustrated. You can see
Right.
it. And they're like, man, I should have every time they say, I should have started this game. I should have took it up a long time ago.
Right.
And I always tell them, I go, well, you can still do it. And when you have kids, get them going early. They, like I said, they don't have to be tournament golfers.
That's
but
what you gotta be
just
doing
get
with
them
your
around it.
Oh, constantly. I mean,
Yeah.
I have the plastic clubs at the house, hitting
Definitely.
nets, just fun stuff. Again, same
Yeah.
thing. Hopefully they're coming to me, and my daughter's 4 years old now, and she'll say, Dad, do you want to get the golf club and just kind of hit some balls around? And she wants me to do it a little bit more than she actually
Right,
does it.
right.
But she'll still come and want to do it, pick it up. If I'm putting, she'll want to putt,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I can show her a little bit. and she's done like some basic, junior golf.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
that's
tough to
all.
watch because they're just trying to figure it out.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
golf, but just expose them to it and take them on a
Exactly.
cart, drive them around the course. Just let them
Yeah.
kind of experience.
See, that's
it.
an interesting topic, though, too, Tom, because someone like you, obviously, who was at the height of the sport, played on the PGA Tour, had kids. How do you, to your point earlier, encourage, or not even encourage, but I'm sure you'd love if your son Trevor plays golf when he was a kid. I'm sure you'd love if he got into it. But how do you not force it on him when that's been your life, your
Yeah.
love, etc.?
Well, that's a good question because, Jenny, my wife, used to ask me, don't you want to get him into golf? And we exposed him to it when we lived up here. We put him in the Friday Junior League at Indianwood, and we'd expose it to him. But the thing is I always told her, I go, to be honest with you, I really don't want another tournament golfer in the family. I said, when I come home, the last thing I want to do is really think about golf. Like, I'm decompressing. So now I got a kid that's a really good junior player, and now we got to go to Lansing for a tournament, and we're on the putting green the night before the first round. He can't shake one in from 4 feet, and I'm trying to talk him off the ledge. It's like, that's my life. Now I got it again, So part of it was me being a little selfish. So I always told him it's going to be a tool in your toolbox. It's a great game. You can play it till the day you die. You'll be able to play it with your wife and kids as well. But like for Trev, who's playing college basketball up at Alma, I said to him, just play basketball as long as you can. You're a good ball player. You're a good athlete. And then have the golf as a second side, And if you get a crazy passion for it and you want to really be good, you still got time to be good. But just exposing them, like what Kyle said, is really important. I just wanted them to know. Trevor still talks about the time we were at Indianwood, and he started running across the first green, and I sat him down and time out on the side of the green. I go, we don't run on the greens. You know what I mean? So things like that are huge. Like, he still talks about it. He goes, I'll never forget that first time we were at Indianwood. I got put in a timeout on the side of the green. I go, well, Aubrey laughs about it, my daughter, because she remembers it. Yeah, Trevor got put in a timeout. Well, you don't run on the green. That's like something you don't do, And I think, it's just a great sport to interact, create relationships with.
It's starting early, and I was a caddy at Warwick Hills growing up.
Yeah.
You learn the little things like that, and even more so that golf teaches you. You learn, don't have your shadow in the line of a putt.
Yeah.
You learn about, like you said, not run, where to park the cart.
Right.
The little stuff that I almost think, and we've talked about this time and time again, we're not going to dive into this rabbit hole, but I think more clubs need to do a better job of instructing that. And there's a lot of clubs now that kind of do these initiations, and it's not people's fault. If you're getting into golf later in life, that's great, but it really is. But I think there needs to be some sort of education on all the little things out there, because you don't want people to be uncomfortable out there at a course that they joined.
Right.
They should at least know basic stuff of where to park the car.
They also
and
have to
stuff.
police the guests that they end up bringing out too. So
Yeah.
if they don't
Right.
know, then their guests aren't going to know.
Right,
And then there's a
right.
whole. I mean, that can create one slow group. Not to get into pace of play either. One slow group can change the dynamic for the entire day. As
yeah.
far as the tee sheet is concerned too. So it's important from that standpoint.
Well,
as
I'm pretty sure, I don't know the exact details of it, but when I played in the European Tour, I had a bunch of Swedish friends that played. And in Sweden, they had to go through all these classes before they were even allowed on the golf course.
Sure.
And they ran them through like etiquette stuff. It was very interesting. So they had a great knowledge of the game, even the people just starting the game. You couldn't get on the course till you had the certification or something.
Well,
kind of like a boater safety or something like that.
And on the topic, if we, again, this all ties into golf, business side of it, et cetera. But on tour, with pace of play has obviously been a huge issue lately. There's a
Yeah.
lot of players talking about it, a lot of fans, a lot of broadcasts talking about it openly now. Look
Yeah.
at Pebble Beach recently.
Yep.
Tom, how does that work on tour with guys getting put on the clock and then ultimately fined? Or do you think there needs to be more fines for pace of play, or what?
I don't think the fines will do it because they got so much money. That's not going to do
Yeah,
it. It's
especially
got to
the-
be
the
shots.
top players.
You got to give them shots. And the problem out there is guys just aren't ready to hit when it's their turn. And that was the same problem when I was out there, and it's really annoying. I don't have a lot of patience for it. I never did when I was out there. I play fast. I'm ready to go. I've already got my number. We've already talked about it. Even if I'm second to hit, we've already talked through the shot. The only thing we're waiting on when it's our turn is where the air is. If it changed, if it moved out of a
So
different
why aren't
direction.
guys ready?
I have no idea. I don't know. And it starts at the college level. The college level is awful. You watch that NCAA tournament. I watch it every year, and I watch what goes on. These coaches are up on them all the time. They're so into their business constantly. And my wife gets mad at me because I start complaining and bitching about it. And I go, look at this. No wonder why these guys. There was a kid about 4 or 5 years ago. Came out on tour. Can't remember his name. He played at Penn State. But they had to put him on a payment plan after he got on tour for a year. He didn't make much money. He had so many fines. They had to put him on a payment plan. And I go, well, something happened before that. He should have been fixed before he ever got out there. And it's just, they don't. They're starting to get to a point where they're shaming these guys, which they should. I look at it as equivalent to a thief. Okay, so now I'm a fast player and I'm playing with 2 really slow players, and they're taking up time. We're over the time limit, and then all of a sudden I hit one maybe in a hazard, or I've got a drop on a cart path next to a hazard, and I need help. It's going to take some time. I got the official there, and I need time, and I don't have any time because after we play the hole, the next tee, the police is there, and they're like, okay, you guys are on the clock now. And I'm like, well, that's great. I've been saving these guys time because I play fast. They're taking all my time. So I was always blatant about it. I go, playing with another thief today. It's a very self-centered way to play the game. It's like you don't care about anybody else. I'm only out here. And I didn't learn it that way. I was taught at a young age, like, be considerate.
For sure. It's honestly, it's an entertainment issue as well. Like, look at Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
And look, you can agree, disagree. It's a traditional game, whatever. Maybe you don't like the changes, maybe you do with the pitch clock, but baseball recognized, hey, we can't have these 4.5-hour Yankees Red Sox games on Tuesday nights.
Level.
No one's watching these games for that long.
People love it now.
Right, 100%. The pitch clock is picked up. I watched more baseball last season alone than I had in several years, and that has a lot to do with the Tigers. But you do need to make sure that the sport, for its survival, continues to be appealing to people who can sit down and watch a 4 or 4.5 hour round as opposed to 5.5 or 6
or whatever,
hours,
yeah.
just from the attention span standpoint.
Well, I'm a fan. I watch it. I pretty much watch it every Sunday.
Same.
And I have a hard time. There's times where I'm like, look at this, look at this. I'll be sitting there telling my wife, look at this, look how long this takes. Guy's not even ready to play. He wasn't even ready to play. And it's hard, even as I consider myself a fan now, a retired player who's a fan. It's appalling at times, and I commend these people on the telecast as the announcer that are starting to point it out. And it's time to shame these guys because they're very inconsiderate and they're only considering themselves, and that's not what the sport's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. To that point, I just really think that, and Tom, I don't disagree at all that maybe it starts at the college level or younger or whatever. I just think that it ultimately, the blame that I place is on the PGA Tour. Because no, I'm serious. Because to that exact point, if Major League Baseball figured out a way to fix it, then the PGA Tour should have figured out a way to fix it. Because I guarantee that pace of play in baseball was also stemming from college level and below. But MLB said enough's enough. This is what we're doing. I think the Tour needs to say that. And whether it's I think it's a shot clock. I really do. Yeah. Which is written, as Brooks Koepka said, it's written in the rules that you get 45 seconds to hit.
Yeah.
So if they have to start putting a damn shot clock on the TV, or a scorer's walking with a clock,
right,
that's what you need to start doing, period.
I agree. The Tour has dropped the ball on that and many things, but that is definitely, it's on them. That they haven't enforced the policy, and they need to, because people are starting to, they're starting to shout about it and complain about it. You see it all over social media. Now you got players, reputable players, making statements like, "Hey guys, we got to get going here." Charlie Hoffman just put a great statement out, said it nicely. I know Charlie well. He could have put it in a lot different context, but it was very professional, well written, and you guys posted it on the MDG, and I said, well said, and then I went back to the point about I'd always looked at them as thieves. I always felt like they're taking something from me, and it's just not good for the game, and hopefully they'll get out ahead of it here soon.
So to the point of the game itself right now, and again, this is when you look at the business side of it, when you look at all the money that's flowing in from LIV. I was just at TGL a few weeks ago down in Palm Beach Gardens, and you look at what they're trying to do and what it costs to build that stadium, and just in general, the increased purses, all the business and all the money that's flowing into golf. Where do you see it going in terms of this merger that hasn't happened yet, or how can we get the best players back in the same tournaments besides just the majors and I guess, Tom, just the sport itself, because there is an influx of money that's just poured into it the past few years.
Well, yeah, I mean, eventually they're going to have to come to an agreement of some sort. I think what the big hang-up is, what do you do with the guys that left? So
Totally
you're just
agree.
going to let them back in freely or not, and that's a sticking point that they're probably still battling over. And I don't really know what the answer is to that. I do know I had a friend of mine, that called me 3 years ago and was offered $18 million from Liv, and he's like, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, you're talking to a 52 or 3-year-old guy at the time. I said I would take it." And his concern was, well, it's kind of hard to leave the tour, all those cool events, Pebble, all that, and what am I going to do? And I remember saying to him, I go, "Listen, they're not going to be able to keep you out forever. They're just not. It's not going to happen. They're not going to be able to keep you out forever because there's going to be too big an outcry when you splinter these tours and you got all these good players over here and good players over here." So I don't know what they're going to do in the end. It's been ugly for the sport. It'll come together. It always will. It's a great game, and it will always continue. They just got to touch some things up, back to the pace of play. There's tons of money in there. People are interested. There's an awesome amount of entertaining going on, and you've seen that when you go down to Rocket. There's a lot of business being done. It's not always being done on the golf course. It's being done up and down the sides of the fairway and behind the green and the sky towers. And they just got to make it a little bit more interesting for the fan. But I think golf will be fine, as always. And Mr. Nicklaus and Mr. Palmer used to always say that.
Right.
In the end, it'll win out, which it will. We're just, we got some turbulent water right now, and they'll get through it. It's just, Liv, those guys come in and they shook it up, and they made it very, very difficult. And eventually they've made it better, for the players as far as compensation.
Sure.
They really have, and Phil's got a point on that. For them getting that kick started, it's made a bunch of other players a heck of a lot of money. But people are starting to view that now. These guys getting that extra money, and they see the slow play, and the fan is annoyed right now, and they got to touch that up and clean that up.
The fans, unfortunately, bear the brunt of the issue. One of my things is gosh, with 2020 and everything that went on, golf just exploded. And in the last 5 years, it's been incredible. And I felt like leading up to that, some of these lesser tournaments even started to become must-see TV, and there were enough good players out there together that you started to not only attract the fans who were going to watch golf every single weekend, but you started to get some of the ancillary people on the outside watching, the Phoenix Open or whatever it might be, start to just be interested from a social perspective. And then all of a sudden the splintering happened, and it's almost like, okay, it's right back to the 4 majors are the biggest events of the year, and those are the only ones that matter. And people have slowly started just kind of not pay attention to a lot of these other events. And I think that's extremely frustrating and disappointing, because golf could have capitalized, I think, a little bit better.
Oh, yeah.
In the last 5 years, had they not splintered
question.
like this.
Yeah.
And ultimately it does. It affects fans. I mean, there's a lot of leaderboards that it's tough to watch. And then
they don't know them in the tour. That's on the tour.
Right.
They need to market them better. And they haven't done a very good job of that at all. They really haven't, and they'll pretty much tell you that. You see comments from executives that we got to do a better job of getting these guys' stories out. And there's a lot of great stories. Not all of them were, All-Americans, 4-time All-Americans or whatever, and the best junior in the country. That's not. Some of these guys worked at Publix and different places, and there's a lot of really, really good stories out there, and they need to capitalize on that and market that better so we know who these guys are. I watch it too, and I'm like, man, I don't know any of these guys. Well, that's fine, but help me out so I get to know these guys. And then all of a sudden you get a guy like a Jake Knapp winning last year, and you're like, oh, this guy's pretty interesting. Then now you start identifying with him a little bit. They need to do a better job of that.
Right.
So from an economy standpoint, the state of Michigan, we'll speak about for a second, $6.1 billion impact that golf has. There's 859 courses. There's 61,000 jobs. Michigan is, and you've played all over the world, Tom, but Michigan is the single biggest golf tourism economy that's winter interrupted in America. It's bigger than New York. It's bigger than Wisconsin. It's bigger than Ohio. So obviously you have Florida, you have California, you have those giants that are year round. But the golf industry in Michigan and the golf appetite, even having launched Metro Detroit golfers to 60,000 plus across all platforms now. But the golf industry in Michigan is huge.
Oh yeah, well, I mean that there's no question, and that tourism side of it is a big thing. People like to come up here, and it's fun. You go up north, you play all those golf courses, Boyne, all those places around there. There's so many of them, and it's a pure form of golf. And I'm happy to say I was raised here, and that they care about. It's a very big, like you said, 6.1 billion. That's a pretty big impact.
Well, and I want to just mention this. This is something we don't talk about a ton, but now that you're here, this would be a perfect jumping off point. I've heard from a lot of people that have asked, oh, well, how come, why aren't there more tour events in Michigan? Because look at Arcadia Bluffs or Kingsley or Crystal. And I want to just unpack that for a second. Number one, there's a lot of courses that, quite frankly, don't want an event because it's going to shut down the course and there's all that goes into it. But number two, and I think perhaps more relevant, is that what people need to realize that there's a lot more that goes into a course hosting a tour event than just the golf course. It's the parking, it's the proximity to the airport, it's the local economy and sponsorships. Would you agree with that? That there's other factors besides just the golf course we see on TV as to why destinations are hosted?
Yeah, there's so much more into it. I got the first-hand experience from the '89 Ladies Open in '94 at Indywood because I was around there and I worked it in '89. But when the tour was thinking about coming to Detroit, the former executive vice president Andy Pazzer would call me and goes, we're looking at Detroit Golf Club. What do you think? And I'm like, well, it's good. I go, you got to be careful down there. You don't want guys going out of there turning left on, what is that, 7 Mile?
Yeah,
I know we got issues, but it'd be, they wanted to keep it in Detroit.
Right.
And they're like, well, is there any other golf courses that could handle it? And I said, not really, only Oakland Hills.
And Oakland
You don't
Hills
have the
wouldn't want
infrastructure. You need the parking. There's so much more that goes into it. One of the things when I first got on tour, I was just amazed at how big the properties were. Mm-hmm. Like my whole rookie year, it was like I had to start adding an extra half hour to 45 minutes of my morning if we're teeing off at 8:30 in a practice round or whatever. I had to start getting there earlier because I'm going to a venue I've never been to. The locker room's over here. The equipment trailer's over here. The range is over here. You're like, geez, these are big venues. This isn't Corn Ferry Tour stuff. These are really big venues, and you need it to have to run those tour events.
And I think this is the interesting stuff where walk people through that aren't familiar with something like that. So anecdotally or specifically speaking, you check in for a tour event, and again, you're an independent contractor,
right?
You are paid on your performance, but when you actually check into an event, they're providing transportation, lodging, or not?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, tour events, they give you a courtesy car and all that. But once you get there, like it was always nice to have a veteran caddy because you're like, first thing you want to do is register. Like, where's registration? So yeah, registration's here, and then locker room will be here, and once you get into registration, they'll tell you where you need to go. But there's sometimes you're walking around some of these venues, you don't even know where you're going. They're so big. But you get.
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
What's that?
Bubba Watson was walking on the back patio at DGC. I think it was the first year of the Rocket, and he's looking at him and I. We're just kind of walking around. He's like, "Where's the range at? I don't even know."
Yeah,
like,
there's a lot of that.
You had to get a cart to go.
Yeah.
Through I think Fairway 1 on the south coast to get to the range. It's crazy.
There's a lot of that. It's but they do a good job of we have our own website, so PGA Tour links, so. You go in there, you log in there, and every event it tells you, what the hotels, they'll give you 2 or 3 hotels to stay in. Choose which one you want to stay in. They do a pretty good job on the information side of that. It helps you out. But yeah, they give you a car. Some events like the Memorial was the best event, bar none, that I played in because they would feed you breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And a lot of them would be breakfast, lunch, and then you're on your own for dinner, which is fine. But, if you played late on a Friday and you got done, you walked in, and maybe you made the cut on the nose, you're going to be going out first out at 8, and you're kind of wore out. Boom, they got food there for you. You can just eat and get out of there. You don't have to go sit down in a restaurant or whatever. Those are the parts of the tour people don't see. Now, if you're playing in the afternoon like Tiger was all the time, they're on a different clock than a guy like me who was like a journeyman middle-level player. Those guys, they were eating late. they're eating at 10, 10:30, but might not teeing off till 2:30 or 3. British Open even later maybe, But Memorial did a good job. Majority, I'm kind of out of touch with it. It's been 7, 8 years since I've been out there. More of those events could be serving dinner. I'm not sure if they do that at Rocket. It's a really nice touch, especially if you got young kids too. Now you got
the family gets dining as well.
Well, they get to eat, and you don't have to go find a restaurant. Like if you're playing at Rocket, you go out of Detroit, and you're staying downtown. You got to get down there. Now you got to get kids in. You got to get them some food too. And it just turns into a process. Now, what happened with COVID, I noticed on the Champions Tour for us, is that we started eating in more. Having the food brought to your room. And there's a lot more of that. I'm sure there's quite a bit of that on the PGA Tour where we would all meet and have dinner. You might go to dinner with 3 or 4 guys every night, And now it's like you get done, you're like, I'm wore out. I'm going to watch whatever show I want to watch on Netflix or whatever, and I'm just going to have the food brought to me, whether it's DoorDashed in or whatever, or Uber Eats. So that, I found us doing a lot more of that after COVID.
Let's talk a little bit more about you and kind of, I don't know, the transition from, you becoming who you are and being a pro and, all the various tours and everything like that. Like when did it go, I guess, for you from, it being a tremendous hobby with obviously a goal of being on the tour to you operating as a business in your own personal entity? You know what I mean? Like when did it become more of, I got to really think about the next steps? And did you have mentors who helped you with decisions and, things like that?
That happened pretty quick. Once I turned pro, it became, it was pretty eye-opening immediately. It was a business, and then you have sponsors, and you got to answer to them, and setting up accounts where you're keeping the money in, in an account where what we always called it the kitty, and at the end of the year you got to divide it up, and some people say just keep it in there, we'll go again. There was a lot to it. I grew up pretty fast on that, I would say it was right when I turned pro that it wasn't amateur golf anymore. We got people spending money and backing you, and I formed a limited partnership at Indianwood, and we had 150 members put in $100 or something like that, and so I would have to write them letters. I'd write them letters from Florida, playing the mini tours every month or so, tell them how we're doing, what we've made, how we're finishing, and. So there was a lot to it. You kind of grow up fast. I think when you get on, if you're a hot shot player, all of a sudden it comes a lot easier. You got an agent. Mm-hmm. You got people looking after you. You don't have to really worry about that. As I got on tour, I never really needed an agent. I don't really think you need an agent unless you're a top 50 player in the world. A lot of guys just say they have an agent because they want to say it sounds cool. Yeah, I got an agent. I had one for 1 year, and I'm like, you know what, this is a waste of time. All of my deals are people I've met. So if I'm sponsored by GM Goodwrench, it's because I've got a friend I caddy for at Indianwood that's vice president of Spurs Service Parts and Operation now of GM. So that's how those deals are struck. Dow Chemical, the same way. I knew somebody worked for the company, played golf with them once. They're like, we really like it. We'd like to sponsor you.
That's great. Networking.
Now, a top 50 player, though, now you've got something to sell as an agent, and you can say, hey, and then you could go out and get some deals. But for me, it wasn't worth giving 20% up. Because I just wasn't that type of player. You don't really need that. But then as I got on tour, the second time I went back out on tour for the remaining 5 years, I had a bill pay company and a company that did the taxes. So that was really rewarding for me, and it saved me a lot of time. I had young kids at the time,
right.
And I'd come home after 3 or 4 weeks on the road, and it was before we were doing all this stuff online where you can pay these bills, and I'd be sitting at my desk for 5-6 hours paying bills or calling credit cards, arguing charges or whatever, and I just remember coming out of my office saying to my wife, like, man, I can't do this. I could be practicing. I could be with the kids. I got to get somebody. So I think I still have them. I think I pay 12 or 15 grand a year to do that. And that's really what a player needs, is to make his life easier.
Sure.
In business in general, as tough as it is, you need to be able to delegate and focus on what's important.
Yeah.
And I think whether what you just talked about, whether it's financial backing coming up, where you're not worried about, at least for the time being, I need to win because I need money. Yeah. Once you have some sort of financial backing or certainly some sort of status on tour, I'd imagine that's a monkey off your back, as well
Big
as
time.
Those other tasks you're talking about, like accounting.
Yeah, it was, it took a lot of time. There was a lot into that when you're handling everything on your own. And then finally you get out there and you've built up some credibility. You got a card and you kept your card and you're like, you know what, I think I want to do this. It's hard to get. It was always hard for me to get my head around. We're going to write a check for $15,000, but it was awful nice to come home and not worry about it and know all the bills were paid. And,
right.
It's also
that's nice.
Well, how about the daycare on PGA Tour?
Yeah.
To know that when you bring your kids to events that there's a daycare, and I've talked to you and Jenny about this where I believe it's the same people every week. They know the kids. I think that's a great,
like traveling nannies.
A great
What an operation!
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
That was one of the best perks of the tour, especially when you had kids. Was that there was the same ladies. Now they don't work every single week. They'll rotate some. There was men in there too. And I remember one year I played an event. I can't remember where it was, but we went in to get the kids. We played well and we finished late. And my kids were the last 2 kids in there. And I remember looking at them, and it just broke my heart. I was so, it just crushed me that they had to be in there by themselves. But they were young, but it hit me hard. And I got over it quick because we were playing the tour. And there's a pot of gold at the end of Rainbow every Sunday. And, that's what I told myself. I said, this is where you want to be. We're not going back now. This is it. But it just, I guess I looked at it like, man, there's some sacrifice here, and they were fine, but it's just like,
they don't
like,
realize
what kind of world what am I living in? What kind of world am I living in? You know what I mean? It's like, well, you're at the height now. I mean, this is what you always wanted. So get used to it.
Did they realize though, Tom? I mean, obviously at the LI when you had retired, of course they're borderline adults now and fully realize and appreciate. But was there a certain age where, they realized, quite frankly, hey, this isn't normal that my dad plays on PGA Tour?
Well, I think in 15 when I lost to Spieth in the playoff, I think, I'd said in the press a few times, I think my kids are like, man, my dad doesn't suck. He's pretty good at this game. You know what I mean? Like even Trevor, my oldest right now, he's like, I wish I'd have been a little older during those times because I didn't grasp what you were doing for a living. And he said I would have liked to have had a little more idea what was going on. You know what I mean?
Well, one of my favorites is when you said that Trevor your son was in the elevator with Tiger Woods, and he said, "Hey, Tiger, do you know who my dad is?"
Yeah. He got on there at the Greenbrier. He had a Tom Brady jersey on. And he had a half deflated football that he was throwing around the pool.
Go figure.
Yeah, I wasn't I was up in the room. I just got back. So Jenny, all week they wanted to meet Tiger, and Tiger was playing that week. Yeah, we're gonna meet Tiger, and I'm like, well, you might not, So sure enough, they were in the elevator, and Tiger walked out. He looked right at Trevor, and he says, "Tom Brady, huh?" Trevor's like, yeah. He goes, "That football looks a little light on air." and Aubrey just choked. She didn't know what to say, and Trevor wasn't saying anything, and Jenny goes, "You can talk to him." And he goes, "You know my dad?" He goes, "I know your dad. His name's Tom Gillis." He goes, "I know your dad." And then, man, the rest of the week, he kept saying, "Yeah, me and Tiger were friends." And so I saw Tiger on the putting green. I think it was Sunday morning. And I go, "I hear you got a new best friend," because that's all I keep hearing every day is you guys are like this now, tight. He said, I just remember Tiger saying, "That's beautiful. I love it." Yeah. So those, and then I'll never forget Trevor got invited. They were friends with Luke Donald and Diane, and they had kids similar ages. And it was during the old Honda, and one of the Donalds had a birthday, and so they invited Trevor over, and he went over there with Jenny, and I think Aubrey might have came, and Michael Jordan was there because Mike's close with Luke, and my dad was sitting on the couch, and I knew he'd be there, and because they have kids similar age too, and they live right next to each other at the Bears Club. So I said to Trevor, I said, "Anybody famous there at that birthday party?" "Yeah, there was some big, tall black guy. He's supposed to be good at basketball. He was there, And my dad, I go, "Yeah, was his name Michael Jordan?" He goes, "Yeah, I think so." And my dad's just looking at me like, "What? He just had a birthday party with Michael Jordan's kids?" So Trevor, as being a basketball player, he says, "I just wish I was, a little bit older to understand all that."
Yeah.
But we had a lot of cool experiences. We were just so blessed for all those.
Incredible.
There's so many more, too. You forget about them. You take them for granted until you say something and it spurs a thought,
Obviously, one of the huge reasons you did what you did and, had the career that you did is you want to provide that security for your family. Experiences like that. Was there, again, in talking about the business side of it, was there a, one of those big moments where it was like, okay, secure, we are secured to us, you know what I mean, to a certain degree, was there that moment? Because obviously you're grinding. I mean, it's not like you didn't just hit the tour and the jackpot wasn't just right there. But
I was really never that secure. I just never was that player. When I played good, my stuff was as good as anybody's in the world at the time. That was proven, with the second to McIlroy at Honda in 12. Yep. He went to number 1 in the world, and then when I lost to Spieth in 15, he went to number 1 in the world that day as well. So it's rewarding when you look back and say, hey, I just wasn't that, I wasn't as consistent as I could. When I was good, I was good. Mm-hmm. But I think I never felt totally secure. To me, it was like foot down. Let's make as much as we can, as fast as we can make it, and never look back. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's just kind of how I looked at it. I think it's because I was, on and off tours over the period of 30 years. So I never took it for granted because, one bad year and you're out of there. I mean, that's just it. Unless you've won 3, 4, 5 events, you go into that career money or past champions category. And I never won on tour. So, like, when the Spieth playoff was over, I was devastated because I think I was close to, I might have been 47. And I was like, man, that would have really been nice because now you're a member of the tour for life. So you'll always be health. You'll have the health insurance, and you'll always be a member of tour for life. And the
2-year.
Yeah, that's kind of fun. Just say that you're a lifetime member.
So damn it, Jordan.
Yeah, exactly.
From a competition standpoint, I think about when we deal with other marketing firms, and oftentimes, of course, everyone's competitive, but I still always want to be friendly, and maybe you learn something, and maybe we can help them in an area with video that they don't do, or they can help us with a certain consulting area that we might not be too familiar with.
Right.
I always want to be collaborative, but as competitive as we all are, I feel like it's kind of similar on tour where you guys are all, there's no doubt all of you are competitive, but you're still friendly.
Yeah, it's still friendly, and everybody's running their own business. Basically, you are running your own business, and when I say that, I mean the business consists of the kids, the daycare, who's picking up, whatever. This is our business. This is what we do. How you choose to play that Monday Pro-Am for $2,000 every week or $3,000? Do you choose to go to an off-site Pro-Am? Let's say you play in Colonial and you got to get up to Memorial. Do you decide to go to Albuquerque and get paid $10,000 for that Monday? Yeah. And then you get to Memorial on Tuesday and you got to rush around for a practice round. There's a lot of decisions like that when you first get on tour. And fortunately, I was older when I got on tour, and I listened really well to guys that were on tour. And everybody pretty much told me, all my close friends are like, the real money's on the golf course. Yep. So don't run yourself ragged just because you've been playing these other secondary tours or whatever, and you see all this money
quick
here.
Money.
Like, yeah, quick money. Quick money. You see that quick money, and you're like, oh, I'll go do that. And I remember we had a guy on the Nationwide tour back. It was called, the old Core Ferry. He played every Monday Pro-Am, and by the end of the year, he was exhausted. You know what I mean? He didn't keep his card. He went for that $1,500 every week. 30 times or whatever, and yeah, but it's like, if you just got your head right and won, there's your $100,000 right there. You're wearing,
that's 10 weeks.
You're driving, you're getting done and driving 10 hours to get to this next spot to play a Pro-Am for $1,500. Then you got to get to, it's a lot on you. It wears you down. Like when I would get offered Pro-Ams, I would pick a few that I would do a year where they weren't going to run me into the ground, where I wasn't wore out, because the real money's still on the golf course. And if you're not exempt, you're like, we got to get our card first. We got to get our money up before we start taking off doing these things.
From a normal tour perspective, how many hours are you spending at the course on, let's say, a Tuesday? Are you playing 9 holes and you're going to chip and putt? What's...
Well, it depends on every category. So, if you're not in the Pro-Am, Tuesday is a long day. It's going to be a 10, 11-hour day. That'll be your longest day, most likely. So you get in there in the morning, you're doing your workout, then you're playing your practice round at 9 o'clock. You get done, 1:32. You go eat. You chill for a half hour, 45 minutes. Now you're going to go do what you got to do, your practice, whether it's your putting drills or whatever. Then after that, you're going to the trainer. and he's stretching you out or whatever, or you're icing down if you got an injury. And then, you're back at the room at 5:30, and back then it was like shower, boom, then we're going to dinner, and you're back in the room at 8:30 at 9. And then, and if you weren't in the Wednesday Pro-Am, you didn't show up till 12:30 or 1. You'd have your, as the Europeans call it, a lie-in. You'd sleep in a little bit. So it's pretty, you don't have much time to see what people think you're going to see in these towns. I've played in 32 countries, and it'd be like going on a business trip, man, and you're working all week. You're not sightseeing.
Right.
Only time you're sightseeing, unfortunately, is when you miss the cut.
Right.
And you're waiting 2 days before you travel again to go to the next event.
Do you still, so if you book like an Airbnb or a hotel, do you book it through? Do they refund you if you miss the cut?
No, we would always book. We would always book the whole week, no matter what, when we do that, especially if we had the kids. And then the great thing about the tour, I'm sure they have it to this day. We had a travel agent right in the player family dining. So when we got done on Friday, if we missed the cut, I would even text them if I was going to miss the cut. Eric, I need to get back to West Palm Beach, or I got to get to Detroit. Or there's 3. Just tell him who's with you. By the time you get done, he'd say, "I got you this. You're on at 8:00 tonight," or whatever. Wow. That was nice to have somebody in there to handle that. He had the computer right there, and so like I said, as I became a veteran, when I knew I wasn't going to make the cut, I would text them. So that way you don't get in your stand because there could be a line. The
tour doesn't pay for that travel.
No. You're paying all your own travel. Now, there are certain events that, they'll charter and they'll pay. The Champions Tour last Sunday left from Miami to Morocco, and they flew on the Royal Air Morocco, which is owned by the Prince, and that's a free trip. But mainly you're on your own for all expenses. Well, some of the elevated events may pay your hotel. It depends. But normally you're on your own for all that.
I have one more question just about sponsorships and whatnot, but if you have
please.
anything, before that.
I was just going to honestly ask the biggest difference in your mind from, European PGA Tour and then the Champions Tour. And, again, you have a ton of accomplished players who are, playing there, but it's 3 days versus 4. It's, no cut. Yeah. Was it a more relaxed? You still want to make money, but was it a much more relaxed environment?
Way more relaxed on the Champions Tour. The European Tour is very similar to the Champions Tour because the players hung out together a lot. We might be in rural Germany, and there's only 2 hotels they got for us, so half the players would be in one hotel, half be in the other, or whatever. And I really enjoyed the 5 years in Europe because you just meet down in the bar around 6:00. You go to dinner with whoever you want to go for. These guys are going to Italian. These guys are going whatever. We're going, I'll go with these guys. And you just sit down and you just eat. There's no egos. You just sit there and eat with whoever. And you really get to know people. Yeah. And then when I got to the tour, I got back home, got to the tour. It was more business-like. Guys had entourages. There's people. They got their trainer, their agent. They got people with them and all that. I'm like, wow, this is not like Europe. And then you get the Champions Tour, and the guards let down. Guys are older. They made their money. They're happy to be still getting paid. And the guys, even some of the guys that were, I wouldn't call them jerks on tour, but maybe not very friendly or so into what they were doing. Now they're more open, and you're sitting and eating with people you'd never thought you'd eat with. Champions Tour, if you're out there, you could be sitting next to a Hall of Famer. He's going to treat you just the same. You could sit next to Ernie or Padraig, and they're like, we're on house money now. We made it. So I really enjoyed the Champions Tour. Very light atmosphere.
I'm always amazed just to that quick point about all the coaches out there from a payroll perspective. I mean, some of these guys, strength coach, swing coach, putting coach, agent, caddy, trainer.
Yeah,
nannies.
They're probably paying 10 people.
Well, that, and a lot of them are flying private. At 25 years old, some of these guys think that money's going to be coming in forever. I saw that a lot. Like, I think the most I ever spent in 1 year, it was one of my good years. I think I made 1.3 or whatever. I think we spent $30,000 total. And flying, because we wanted to get the kids home on Sunday night. I think one time we left from San Antonio, flew back to West Palm. We had them in bed by 9 o'clock, and they're in school in the morning. You know what I mean? So there was some of that. But you're starting to those coaches. They're probably on. Everybody's a little different. Average probably 2 to 3% of your earnings, somewhere in there. It adds up.
Yeah.
But when you're a top flight elite player, you need all that team around you, and you should have that around you. Yeah. Yeah, some of it's probably a little extreme, I mean, I think there's some guys with some egos that like to have it looks like they got a posse, people like that.
Mental coaches, I mean, you name it. There's a ton.
And my best friend, Carl Peterson, who made $22 million, won 5 times. He never had anybody. It was just him.
Yeah.
Just did it all. He goes, why do you need all that? Like, didn't really work out, didn't train. The tour has physio trailers that are we pay them, the tour pays them. So you go in and they'll stretch you and do whatever. But, so there was all different kinds of people. Some guys wanted to have the entourage. And like Carl, he couldn't be bothered with it. I didn't want to be bothered with it. I'm like, nah, I don't. Oh, we all got to go to dinner now, with your whole team. And it's just like, man, that's a lot. If you're a top player in the world, I get it. That's the way you roll. Your agent's with you all the time. I see it with Ernie. His agent's with him a decent amount. Even now, like when he's sponsored by Boyne, we go out and play the Boyne Classic in Seattle. Rob Goulet, who's his manager, he's there with him all week, And when you're a top player, number 1, number 2 in the world, even maybe top 10, that agent's going to be with you a lot because he's there to buffer and shield you from requests, media requests. And, sometimes you got to just say no. You can't say yes to everybody all the time.
For sure. Right. No, and that's my last question was going to be, I know that you talk about earlier the money's made on the course, and just if we could real quick with the off-course sponsorships as well, which is a secondary part of earnings on the PGA Tour. Obviously, if someone's sponsoring you, you are wearing their hat or wearing their we all see it on TV, wearing the logo on the shirt. And then I assume, Tom, with that comes a certain number of appearances, hours, social media posts, whatever that might be.
Yeah. And don't be fooled. All those logos you see on all these guys' shirts, they're not for as much as you think. I can promise you that. So for me, I always wanted to limit that because, okay, you've got 3 logos on you and you've negotiated 3 days on each company. That's 9 days. Where are you going to find those 9 days when you're playing, let's say you're playing 25 times? Sometimes it's hard to find those 9 days. I was with Dow Chemical. I had to give them 5. I think GM was 3 to 5. That was about all I wanted to do because some of those are going to fall in between tournaments on Monday between each stop. So it gets back to what I was saying. You run yourself ragged, And, not all those guys that are wearing all those logos that they wear now are given days, too. They might just say, hey, we don't need you for the days. We just want to pay you for the logo, for the exposure.
They're always on TV or whatever.
Yeah, just for the exposure. So there's several different, just like in any business, several different ways to work it. Mine, being with the big companies, they were usually 3 to 5 days. Dow, I don't know if I was with them 7 years. Dow Chemical, I probably gave them 5 days, 2 out of the 7 years, averaged around 3. Maybe on a year you might even go over if it was, a contract year and the guy running the account and be like, well, it'd probably go a long ways. We get you for 1 more day. And you're like, well, that's a good deal. I'll do it, just so you can re-sign.
Of course.
Right.
But in that range, 2 to 5, and then some of those bigger, when you're with the TaylorMades and Titleists and all that, they might be a little more extended. They'll probably want you to do a commercial, a 3-day photo shoot or something like that. So
last one for me, to a small extent, Mike and I obviously went and switched, different careers at a certain point. And I thought one thing that we did a good job of was leveraging relationships from one industry into a new industry and a new world that we're currently in now. So I guess for you, as you're, retiring and, shifting focus a little bit.
Come on, say it.
Yeah, as you're making the turn, to this new life of yours, how much was that a factor, and how much have you thought about relationships you've developed over the last 30 years in the game into now, you can kind of decide, pick and choose, leverage who you want to speak with.
Yeah.
Like, what are your next
steps? Your
steps
contact
here?
list is unbelievable.
Yeah, right.
Well, yeah, and that's, that's why I previously hired on at High Point Golf Club, which is a new golf course up in Traverse City, Michigan, as an ambassador. And because they don't have a lot of members out of the Detroit area and the Chicago area. And the founder, Rod Trump, was a friend of mine who lives in West Palm, but he's from Baltimore. And so, he brought it to me. He goes, we'd love to bring you on as an ambassador role and see if you can help drive membership. And so I said, well, let me think about it. Let me, I know a lot of people up there. I go, just give me a couple days to see if I can help you before I agree to it. And so that's what I'm doing. This is my first gig after retirement. So I'll be up in Traverse, May to October, but I'll be downstate a ton. And we're looking at the contacts of who we've met over the years, and I'll be talking to them, say, hey, who do you think would fit this mold as a proper member here, and so this is a new chapter for me, but I do realize at times, especially being around Sully in the winter in Florida, that I'm like, wow, I've met a lot of people. I've met a lot of people in 32 years of doing it or whatever, 34 years. I'm like, man, there's that's why it's the business side of the relationship.
I have a place in Florida, Kyle.
Yeah, do you really? I've never heard that.
When we'll be sitting outside, and it'd be just person after. All of a sudden, every time I'm with this guy, someone walks up to him, and then he'll introduce us, and then the person will leave and be like, "Oh, he played that's so and so. He played on tour for 8 years." Like, it's incredible.
A lot of all you got to do is be somewhat engaging and
be curious and genuine.
Yeah, and people are just don't have it. I never had a huge ego or whatever, and my dad instilled that in me. And just if you're friendly to everybody and treat everybody, try to treat everybody the same, you're going to have a lot of friends, a lot of contacts over the years.
We talk about that all the time, and not to class people into certain jobs or stereotypes here, but whether it's walking by a janitor or a waiter, or whether it's walking by a CEO or a huge athlete on tour, whoever it might be, we're all human beings, and be genuine. My last thing, Tom, now that you said that, we've done videos on High Point before, and obviously we've shared it with our community a lot. Is there anything just that you'd want to say to people watching this about High Point?
Well, it's going to be, the people we're looking for are people with high golf IQ that understand and respect the traditions of the game. It's going to be a walking-only club. It's Tom Doak's first design. I think he built the first 9 holes in '86 up there in Traverse, and then whoever owned it, it went under, and so Rod came around and bought it a few years ago, and Tom finished another 9, and Tom's the founder as well, and so it's just going to be a really cool. They'll have cottages and a 40-person lodge. It's going to be very unique, and Doak's a great designer. He did all those banding golf courses, and it's going to be fun. It's Rod's he's first class. It's going to be run first class. There's caddies and everything, and it's a little bit higher end, and
a national membership.
Yeah, they got a national. They got members from Royal Melbourne. They got members from all over the UK. We got 160 members right now, and they're looking for 350. And the price will probably keep going up the more they get. And it's going to be a nice place. It'd be, I don't want to put it in the Seminole world, but it'd be similar to like a Seminole or a Pine Valley, where there'll be the traditions of the game will be upheld.
Yeah, that's great.
A very unique place.
Well, obviously, appreciate you joining us as always, and look forward to hearing more about as you've made the turn. So I like that little.
Yeah, that's perfect.
And obviously, of course, go to High Point. We can't wait to follow all that, and however we can help.
Yep.
And however our community can learn more and be engaged. All for it.
Thank you very much for having me. It was good fun.